Ooh. So we duplicated Rogue, right? He's gonna be so mad. Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Marvel Snap video. So it's that time of day again where we are able to pull a mystery card, and then we draft a deck around that card. Now, there's a couple things before we draw the card that I want to mention. We are almost to the point where our collection log gap between card unlocks doubles. So right now it's 48, which is barely at the point where we can get one card a day. Once it goes to 96, it will probably be every other day when we can unlock a card. So I'm going to have to get creative with the content. I'm still going to be doing daily uploads, but it just may not be drafted around a mystery card every single time. I'll have to rehash some old ideas, come up with new ideas with the cards that we have, of course cover the patch once it comes out, that sort of thing. And then if you are watching this video and you are not subscribed, but you do enjoy the content, if you like Marvel Snap, we're doing daily content, maybe consider subscribing. It helps the channel out, it helps us grow and expand. And with those out of the way, we are going to pull our mystery card for the day, and we get the Human Torch, which is a move card. So when this moves, double its power. So we haven't covered a move deck on the channel just yet. And so we've been waiting for either Human Torch or Dagger. Both are move cards that can get buffed up to a pretty large extent. And so I think this is a good time to test out a move deck. Move decks are very fun. They swing really hard. You can get some really powerful creatures out there. It just may not be as consistent as a Devil Dinosaur. Devil Dinosaur is just too much raw power to compete with when it comes to move. But let's go ahead and draft a deck, and then we'll be back. So we did end up getting a draft made. It may look a little bit different than your standard move deck, but it'll all make sense, I promise. I'm going to run through just the general idea of the deck, and then I'll go through some of the choices and why I didn't include certain cards that are key in some other move decks. So with Human Torch, what we want is to be able to move this card several times. So how do we move him? So let's go through our move engines and how we're going to move him around the board first. So Iron Fist. Iron Fist is a 1 cost, which is important to note. He's a 1 cost card that on reveal, the next card you play will move one location to the left after it reveals. So that's our first move engine. Our second one being Cloak, a 2 cost card that on reveal next turn, both players can move cards to that location. So then we can get multiple cards moved and benefited from that card. The third one being Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, on reveal, move your highest power card to that location. So ideally, and almost always, it's going to be our Vulture or our Human Torch. So those are our 3 main move engines. So how do we use them multiple times? How do we make this thing really drive home and make it competitive? So that is where this card comes in. So Falcon. Falcon on reveal, return your 1 cost cards to your hand. So initially, this is a hard card to kind of tech in. That utility is difficult to use, except for in very specific decks. And I think this is one of those decks. So we're going to be able to bring Human Torch back to our hand, and he retains the buffs that he created, or that he has on him. We'll be able to bring Iceman back into our hand to proc Angela multiple times. We'll be able to bring Iron Fist, very, very important, back to our hand so that we can drop Iron Fist, Human Torch multiple times in a game and really double up on Human Torch's power level. And so almost hand in hand with Falcon, we have the Collector, which is weird in a move deck, right? You don't see that really ever. So the Collector, when a card enters your hand from anywhere except your deck, +2 power. So that means whenever we drop Falcon, let's say we return these 3 1-cost cards that we have, he gains +6 power because of that ability. And then we're of course able to drop them again. If we had dropped them on an Angela lane, we can then continue to proc her and make her bigger and stronger in her own regard. Next up, we have Rogue, which Rogue is just too strong right now. It not only counters the really strong ongoing meta, but it steals it for yourself. So it's really, really strong, especially when we're susceptible to things like Iron Man, Devil Dino, a whole bunch of really good ongoing abilities that Wong even, we could still Wong and then have Iron Fist trigger twice when we drop him. Some really cool things that we can use Rogue for in this deck. And then Moon Girl. Moon Girl is another one you don't see in move decks very often. So the idea with Moon Girl is that we buff up our Human Torch several times, and then we pull him back to our hand around turn 4. We duplicate him on turn 5 with Moon Girl, or maybe we pull him back to our hand turn 3, duplicate him turn 4, so we can kind of play around and spread out that power. We'll then have 2 Human Torches to spread across the board. And if those are 16 power, if those are 32 power, we'll be able to separate those and have that power spread out across the board and really help swing lanes. And then of course, Moon Girl also helps buff up the collector. So let's say we copy 3 cards, that's another +6 that we're gonna get to collector. So a lot of ways to make collector pretty large in this deck. And then we have Vulture, which is another card that benefits from being moved around the board. Every time he is moved, he gets +5 power, which is just massive. Move him twice, he's a 13 power card. So usually he becomes a powerhouse unit. He becomes really, really big and like an unstoppable wrecking ball of just destruction. But that, coupled with our Human Torch and our Collector and our Angela, I think give us enough really strong, consistent tools for this deck to be really, really viable. And then rounding out the draw, we have America Chavez, which is a 6-drop card, very, very common in my decks. But this one, since it sits there, you are not going to draw your 6-cost card early, so it helps kind of round out your draws until turn 6 anyways. So turns 1 through 5, you'll have a better chance of drawing your move engines, your move cards, your buff cards, cards that you really need to be ahead by turn 6. So really quickly, let's cover a couple of cards that are typical in move decks and why they're not in mine. So first up, Multiple Man. Multiple Man, when this moves, add a copy to the old location. So since we are not running any kind of buff cards, Multiple Man would then end up being a 2/3 all over the board, and it's just not a good power resource at that point. One of the other big move staples that we are not running is Hulkbuster. So Hulkbuster on reveal, merge this card with a random friendly card at that location. So oftentimes this is used with your Multiple Man, your Vulture, to really give them an initial boost right off the bat. Well, we're not running this one because if we merge Hulkbuster with our Human Torch, instead of a 1-cost card, he becomes I believe it's a 4-cost card. It's either 3 or 4. I think it merges all of the stats together, so the cost, the power, everything. So to that point, he becomes a hindrance because we're no longer able to pull Human Torch back. It really stops what we're really trying to do with this deck. And so one of the last big core move cards, it feels like, is Heimdall that we're not running. Heimdall being on reveal, move your other cards 1 location to the left. I feel like on turn 6, I am going to be wanting to do other plays, like dropping a last minute Iron Fist into Human Torch, or 2 Iron Fist into 2 Human Torches, or a couple of other plays that I think will take priority over Heimdall, moving all cards 1 location to the left. And us not running him, our opponents will anticipate a Heimdall on the last turn and can often misplay in their own regard because they're expecting everything to shift over at least 1, and that's not going to be the case with our deck. Okay, so I think that covers the core cards. We have our deck list here, our card abilities there. Let's go ahead and jump into some games and see how this goes. Okay, so we have adjusted our settings ever so slightly. Actually, we adjust them quite a bit. I don't know why I said slightly. So I want to compete for Muir Island. I think I go ahead and drop Iceman first. I'll drop Angela next, knowing that I'll be able to pull Iceman back into our hand if we need to. And then I'm wondering if I draw into Human Torch, if we ever play him and let him just kind of sit there and build up. So we drop Angela. We're going to let her kind of buff herself up. It looks like they're probably running a high-end, high-power deck. Do we drop Human Torch and move him next turn, or do we kind of let him sit and simmer? I almost want to let him sit and simmer. We're going to let him sit 1 extra turn, because if we play Cloak here, it's going to get destroyed. We want that 4 power on the board. And then they play Wave. So they are running a really high power, high cost deck. Okay, so then we draw into our Iron Fist, which is not necessarily what we want to draw into right now. So I think we just end up dropping Cloak. We will move Human Torch over next turn. He'll become a 8 power card. And then we can hopefully draw into Falcon. If we draw into Falcon, we'll be able to have 2 16 power cards out on the board. And so they drop out Odin. So do they have, the best way I have seen this is if they now have a Sira, which is a 5-cost card, which will reduce the cost of cards in your hand. So then they could play 2 cards on turn 6, and we're only left playing 1. If that's the case, since we're running a low power, low value deck, I think we end up losing. But I do want to drop our cards. Unfortunately, we're going to pull Iceman back into our hand, so that +6 is not going to stay. So this is turn 5. So next turn will be the last turn. We can potentially do Iron Fist and Human Torch next turn, potentially, given that he doesn't have a Sarah. Oh no, he would have to re-trigger this, wouldn't he? Yeah. So I think we just play it as is. I think we move the Human Torch over, we pull him back into our hand, that way we at least have a 16 power Human Torch to play around with. And then the rest of the power we'll have to figure out. And so they pull a Sunspot with their Jubilee, which is not great. So how do we win? Oh, and Iceman, I forgot. Iceman retains his power buff from Muir Island, so that opens up possibilities for us, a lot of possibilities. So where do we want to compete? Where do we think we are going to need to compete? I personally think we're going to need to compete in mid, and then we swing this one with this card. And so thinking of what they drop here, they drop some high power cards. They're going to have to invest. Do we drop a card here just to compete with this one? I don't. So I'm going to drop this here, and I'm under the assumption that he is going to have to play most of his mana to be able to win, to be able to turn these 2 lanes. And so if he plays, and so this is +9, so this is a pretty decent boost here. So if he only plays some, we have this lane, we'll have this lane here with 16. I think this is our play. It could go wrong, it could be a misplay, and he only does, he only does 4 mana, so he has +2, so he wins Murder World. We have to swing this location, and I don't know that we do with that card. Oh my gosh. And then when we pull him over, right now we are winning Murder. Do you guys see how we won? We shouldn't have won, but do you see it? So I misplayed. We won because of a misplay. Major misplay. So I dropped Iron Fist and then Human Torch, but Iron Fist is in the Dark Dimension, so it's not going to reveal until the game ends. So it's not going to get the buff where it moves the card around. We should have lost. Sometimes fate smiles upon you. So now we have SA4 that we're going against. So in our hand, we have our Falcon, we have our Moon Girl, we have Angela, which is a decent start. We just needed to move into a few of our other key cards. So I think we drop Angela. So with the Vault, we can't play cards there on turn 4, but we can push cards in. So that's important to kind of note. So we do have our Vulture. So maybe this game we end up just buffing up our Vulture instead of our Human Torch. Depends on what we draw into next. So I'm going to drop Angela in the far left lane. I like her in either the far left or far right, because it's oftentimes hard to get a card over into the far right or the far left, respectively. And so now I think we drop our Vulture. That's going to buff Angela up to 3. It's going to buff Vulture, or buff Vulture will be 3. We can then drop Doctor Strange over here in the right lane and pull them both over. And so then Vulture will start becoming massive. And then ideally we can draw into the Cloak. so that we can move the Vulture around a little bit to get him even larger. So what kind of deck are they playing? They have Angela and Nightcrawler. It could be a Devil Dino deck. Usually you see Angela in those, and then Nightcrawler sometimes. So I think this is our play. And I think we hold off on playing the Human Torch. Maybe next turn we draw Iron Fist, and then we can drop Iron Fist, Human Torch, Falcon to pull them back into our hand. Tentatively. And then she actually got the buff from us playing him in this lane. Ooh, they're doing a Swarm deck? Really? And so cards will... Oh, never mind. We can't do all of those this turn. So, but what we can do is drop Cloak. We can drop Iron Torch. Or... Forgive me. We can drop Cloak. We can do Human Torch, even. And then... that leaves us some wiggle room or some flex room for next turn. Because even though we won't be able to play cards there, we'll be able to move cards into that location. So they are going to cap it out. And so we will have kind of that strategic advantage to know how much power we need in that lane. Which is going to be an awful lot, isn't it? Oh boy. So 19... and then he has 3 cards in hand. Do we think he can swarm all of those out? I think is a big question here. And so if I had... So that becomes 13. Or do we not do that? Do we undo all actions? Do we just move these 2 key pieces? So 8, okay, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so 13 and 4 is going to be 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So if he doesn't use all of his mana this turn, I think it all depends on if he gets the, the buffs that he needs. So I'm going to move these cards over. I don't think it'll trigger Angela's ability, but we're going to see. I'm going to drop Chavez over here, hoping that the 12 will be enough. But I don't know. I think we have to push a lot of power into the mid lane and assume that either he doesn't use all of his mana or that the strong guy buff comes in. So what did he just do? So I'm not sure where... Oh, okay. I think he was anticipating... Remember when I said the opponent will typically anticipate you using Heimdall on the last turn and shifting everything over? Is that what they anticipated here? I think so. And so we were able to sneak that one out. It doesn't... I want Human Torch to be larger than life. I want him to be so big that I think we keep trying. We may be winning, but I think we keep trying. Can this be the game? Can this be the one that we make Human Torch insanely massive? So my first question is, do I hold off on Angela so that I can drop Human Torch and then Doctor Strange to pull Human Torch over? Because if I drop Angela and then play a card on her, and actually I can split them up. I think regardless, I drop Human Torch this turn. We drop Angela next turn, either into the unknown or into the middle location. And then next turn, I'll be able to drop Doctor Strange, pull the Human Torch over, and then we can kind of go from there. So they do have an Angela as well. What does this location turn out to be? On turn 5, cards cost 1 more, which is unfortunate. Makes it a little hard to get all of our combo off for that last that last turn that we're wanting to do. But I don't think it ruins everything. And we do have Iron Fist here, so I think even if we draw Falcon next turn, we drop Iron Fist Vulture to start buffing up our Vulture. And then we can, of course, pull Iron Fist back into our hand with Falcon. Granted, we draw him. And I think this deck list would feel even better with like a Beast, where you can play him in a lane, you can pull those cards back, and they cost one less. I think it would feel even better. So it looks like another Swarm deck. They have Strong Guy. So Strong Guy's making a comeback. Where do we want our Vulture? Where do we want him placed? So I think we want him in this mid location. So we're going to drop both cards on this far right lane. That's going to buff our Angela twice. And then next turn we can drop Falcon and then whatever else, maybe a Rogue, maybe whatever else we need to on turn 5. Actually, we won't be able to do both of those, but we'll be able to drop Falcon for sure. And then we can play both of those again to get a pretty large Human Torch. I think it's only going to end up being plus 16, which is still, I mean, it's still good. You can't complain with the 16 power 1 drop. And we may have a pretty competitive, I guess, stake on Wakanda as well. They would have to drop quite a few resources here, and looking at them being a Swarm deck, that may be difficult. So I think we drop Falcon here. That will open us up for some possibilities. So we'll be able to buff up our Angela, so we're not losing that much. They do have 4 cards in hand still, so either they swarm them out on the board or they don't get the Strong Guy buff. We have to kind of play that. We have to kind of play around that piece. But oh, it's not going to be a 16 power torch. It's going to be a 8 power torch, which is just so sad. So very sad. The first game we played, we got him to... Oh. So I'm glad we have... And a collector there would have been just massive. I'm glad we had Vulture and some other cards there, because now when they play a card there, it gets destroyed. So now I'm at a crossroads. I want to move Human Torch to make him bigger, but we would have to drop him here and he would get destroyed to get moved over here. So otherwise I can drop Rogue. It will steal this. I could play Human Torch and then just 2 squirrels. So let's say it pulls Strong Guy's ability. Actually, no. Let's say it pulls Khazar's. It's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, but he could have a blue Marvel. So we're just dropping 5 power in this lane. If he has a blue Marvel, he wins, I think. We are going to proc the Angela buff 2 more times. I think this is our play. And then we're just dropping the cards here, just kind of compete a little bit or close that losing gap. I'm not confident in this play line, but I think it's... What are you doing dropping cards here? Do you have an armor? Do you have an armor and you're going to... So we win, right? He didn't have any kind of buff. We buff our Angela a couple of times. We get the Human Torch, which does bring it over. So it's not the Human Torch we wanted, but it's the Human Torch we needed. That Human Torch and the ability to drop those cards continually with Angela. Angela was the MVP for this game. A plus 11 Angela. So that is a massive Angela. She came in like she was very critical in winning this location. Okay, so now we're going up against NatNoF. And we have Falcon in hand. We have Collector, so 2 pretty good cards to have starting off. We, of course, need to draw into some of our move engines and our move pieces. But overall, I don't feel like this is too bad of a starting hand. So at the end of turn 3, ruin a random location. So that could be Clintar, that could be over here. I think we just play Angela in the middle for now. I think we play Angela in the middle for now. I would like to play him in the left or right, but not knowing if Clintar is going to be destroyed or not. If it's not, it becomes, with our low power cards, it becomes pretty hard to get a lot of value out in that lane, especially when we can just drop a collector over there, and we should be fine. We don't have to invest as many resources. So I think he rogued. Did he go AFK? That took a long time. So the last one being Wakanda, which is not bad. What do we play here? I think we do collector, and we go ahead and drop our Iceman into Los Diablos base so that we can, 1, buff Angela up, and then 2, it's a card that we can pull back into our hand pretty easily to start buffing up our collector as well. So I think we lock that in. I think it's a pretty straightforward play at this point. We don't have any of the move components, so hopefully we draw into those soon. Devil Dino, and that's an early Devil Dino as well. So we have Rogue in hand, so it becomes really easy to steal that buff. But I think we wait. I think we keep it a secret. And so, do we maybe pull a card over in Angela and then let him think that he has won this lane? We can start putting resources here and then start buffing up collector here. And then last turn we can just casually drop Rogue, steal that, and if we can persuade him to not drop resources in Los Diablos base, then with 3 power we can steal that lane pretty easily. Ooh, what a bad target for Jubilee. Their Jubilee pulled Angela in, which is really, really bad. This is not the card you want. But and so we got Vulture. We already used our move component, unfortunately, but it being turn 5, we needed to get those out onto the board. So I think what we do is drop... Do we drop them both here? That will give us a pretty decent power spread across the board. And I think it's pretty strong. It starts buffing Angela. Our collector's going to get buffed up. This lane looks like a loss. It looks like we've abandoned it, and then we can sneak in with a rogue. Very, very sneaky behavior. So Iron Man, ooh, that's a lot of resources into ruins. So is he then abandoning Wakanda? What is he going to drop in the ruins next turn? Ooh. So we duplicated Rogue, right? He's gonna be so mad. This is our play, right? Like, this is the... I think this is the pinnacle. So we steal their Iron Man buff from the ruins. I don't know if we win that one, but I know that we cut it by quite a bit. We steal the Devil Dinosaur from there, so if he invests resources here, then we win this one. If he invests his resources here, we win this one. I think I want to snap. If I didn't want to make sure that we saw the end of the conclusion of this game, I would snap. Because I'm pretty confident we win here with our rogue play. Oh no! And they have no target with their rogue. Okay, so that's good. Do we win all of the locations? I think we do. I think we have a three-peat, or the Trinity, the Holy Trinity. We do, don't we? We do. So, Leader being a card that, when it works well, it works so well. But in that scenario, all we played were 1 power cards because of how powerful their effect was. And so, very good game, Nat no F. So I am going to end the video after that one. That just felt really, really satisfying to win that way. So in the games that I showcased, we didn't get a huge, massive Human Torch, but there was actually a missing first game. So my encoding settings became too, I tried to stretch my software or my hardware a little too far, and it was really, really laggy, really glitchy. So I'm gonna put just like an image, like a real quick image of that game. He became a 32 power Human Torch thing. He was massive, and so I don't know that we're gonna beat that max for a while, but this deck feels very, very solid. There's not, with other move decks, you are relying so heavily on those move components, and if you don't get them or you get them in a poor order, it's really hard to win. With this deck, there are multiple ways, and I think of the different games, I don't think I had one set way that I won every single time. One of the games was, I think, Collector like kind of carried it home. One game, Angela was the MVP. One game, Rogue, the double Rogue, just stole it out and gave us the Holy Trinity, the 3-lane victory. So a lot of really good resources and good ways to win with this deck, and it just feels so solid. I think adding Beast in here somewhere would create some additional value. So we could pull back Falcon, we could pull back Human Torch, we could pull back Iron Fist, and that reduces their cost by 1. So if we have those cards early, we can be multiplying them really early on in the game, and I think it'd make it a little bit more consistent. But we don't have Beast yet, unfortunately. Hopefully soon. We are getting pretty deep into pool 3, so hopefully soon we get some of these other cards that we've been hoping for. But overall, Human Torch feels very fun to use. I think it really starts helping solidify the move archetype and make it a little bit more viable, because before you don't really have all of the tools you need. But anyways, guys, I am going to go ahead and end the video here. If you liked it, if you made it this far, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the feedback that you guys give. I appreciate just you sitting through and watching, enjoying this content that I'm giving you guys. So with that being said, I am going to end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been TLSG. Later.